in this presentation, I'm not focusing specifically on the 2015 season. In fact, I'm deliberately stopping in 2014. This was a paper being prepared for the SBL meeting in Buenos Aires last month. It clearly could not include the coins from 2015. So it is looking at the medieval coins from Bethsaida, 1987 to 2014. Okay, so it's that kind of a slot. It's more or less the presentation I gave in Buenos Aires, but I did think of something to add last night, and I thought I'll try this, and actually that's quite interesting, so it's made its way in to the presentation as well. Okay, so Ian, who was mentioned earlier with his fancy electronic device, certainly his third, possibly his fourth visit to Bethsaida, and finally he got to have a coin. Finally, he discovered one of the coins. There were only 10 coins, by the way, from the 2015 season, and they have now been cleaned, I hope. Hopefully they've been photographed, and by the time I get back to Jerusalem in November and catch up with them in the coin department at the Antiquity Authority, they should have been read and identified and interpreted. So we'll see how we go. So what we're dealing with is an excavation that's been running since 1987. It's headed up throughout that period by Rami Arav, who's the director of the dig and the holder of the license from the Israel Antiquity Authority. In that period, we've found 602 coins, plus another 10 this past year. Well, said that already, there you go. And I just want to acknowledge a couple of people that have really helped. One of them is sitting right here. Donald Ariel, of course, the head of the coin department, has just been a fantastic resource. Ariel Berman, a retired IAA inspector. He lives in Kiryat Tavon, and I go and spend time with him each visit, and we read the coins together, and he teaches me how to read the Islamic coins. He's one of the top Islamic coin specialists in Israel. David Jacobson, that should be, from England, who has contributed to some of the identification. Peter Lewis, my mentor locally, who is always coming up with suggestions and helpful tips, and Saher, my Arabic teacher, who is fast becoming something of a consultant, because if I'm stuck with the Arabic, Saher is learning to read the coins as well as teaching me Arabic. So they're the sort of people whose work lies behind what I'm doing here. What we're dealing with in those 600 odd coins, 376, so more than half of the coins are ancient coins, that is, prior to 500 CE. And of course coins were only invented and developed around about 600 BCE. So there's about 1,000 years of coins potentially from antiquity. 600 or thereabouts BCE, very rudimentary coins. Coins really become more significant in the 5th century BCE, and the magical cutoff is 500 CE. So you've got 800 to 900 years of antique coins. You can see straight away the most significant period for us is in fact the Seleucid period. 130 of the coins from the antique set up are from the Seleucid period, and the next most significant period is the early Roman period, which is of course the time of Herod, the time of Jesus. There's also 22 Herodian coins which are distinct within the early Roman period. The medieval coins, which is what this presentation focuses on, are the coins that were issued between 500 and 1700. Why 1700? Because that's the date the British determined as the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of modernity. Okay, so 1700 is the cut-off point. Anything after 1700 is of no interest to the Antiquities Authority. They'll take them anyway, but they don't get catalogued and tracked in the same way. They're not antiquities if they're later than 1700. We have 60 coins. They're the coins this presentation is about. And 44 of those, actually 50 of the 60 coins are Islamic coins. They have Arabic inscriptions, but they're called Islamic because they're issued by Islamic rulers whose language was Arabic. Okay. And then we have coins from the modern period, which is just over 100 so far. Most of those are Ottoman coins, no great surprise. A handful are European after 1700, and an even smaller handful are from the Syrian Arab Republic, 1948 to 1967. And there's another 50 or 60 coins that are just too badly corroded for us to say anything more than that's a coin. Okay, we don't know quite where they come from. Okay, the Islamic coins themselves reflect to some extent the patterns of interaction with centres of power and mercantile relationships. So there are no Islamic coins from the Rashidun period. That's the period directly after the Prophet. There are a few coins from the Umayyad period, and we know they were in the area. There's a very nice palace about 11 o'clock on the Sea of Galilee, 10 o'clock or so on the Sea of Galilee, from the Umayyad period. 4 coins from the Umayyads turned up at Bethsaida. Only 2 coins from the Abbasid period, and one of them is pierced. I'll come back to that later. Nothing from the Fatimids. They were the crazy rulers, and one of the Fatimid rulers was the caliph who destroyed the Holy Sepulchre, which was the trigger for the first of the Crusades. Following the Fatimids, you've got the Zanjids. We have 5 coins from the Zanjids. We have 1 lonely coin from the Ilkhanid dynasty. We have 6 from the Ayyubids. 2 of them are coins of Salah ad-Din himself. We have 30 coins from the Mamluk. So half of the 60 coins from the medieval period are indeed Mamluk coins. We have 97 Ottoman coins. 2 of them are antiquities. Sorry, because they're earlier than 1700, and the rest are post-1700, so they're considered modern. And we have a few ornaments and tokens, which are not coins, but we're happy to have them nonetheless. So then we start to cut and slice the data in various ways, asking just regular historian-type questions. So first one is, who were they issued by? What are their approximate dates? The next one is to look at them by mint. Where were they issued? Because the capacity to issue coins reflects certain amounts of development, prestige and power and autonomy. And of course the presence of coins from a particular mint in one location like Bethsaida is indicative of a relationship between the people at Bethsaida and the people who issued those coins. Now it's obvious when you're looking at the medieval coins, Damascus is the most significant mint for the medieval coins from Bethsaida. There's one from Baghdad, there's a couple from Constantinople, there's one from Egypt, there's even a couple from Europe. Okay, there's one from Jerusalem and so on. There's even one from Thessalonica. But around 30 or 40 of the coins are minted at Damascus. And that reflects the proximity of Damascus. It's about, if you were at an Israeli-Syrian border bit in the way, you could drive from Bethsaida to Damascus in probably half an hour. It's not a long journey. Okay, and Bethsaida lies on the route between Damascus and the coast. So it's not surprising that a significant number of the coins are minted at Damascus. And we'll come back to that a bit later. These coins then, so we've got 60 of them that are from this period of 500 to 1700. 50 of them are Islamic coins. So I've mentioned 4 are Byzantine, so that's Christian but Roman Empire. 2 of them are Crusader coins. 4 are other European powers whose coins found their way to Bethsaida because of trade and other connections with the coast of Lebanon. And there's another 100 Ottoman coins that'll be a project for next year or the year after. So just to give you a quick heads up, I won't go through 60 coins, but I'll just give one example of each coin category so you get a sense of what they look like. So this is a Byzantine coin from late in the 6th century. It's bronze, it's from Thessalonica. This is an example of a Crusader coin. You can see straight away, Christian coin. I mean, the artwork screams out at you, Christian coin. It's also been pierced. Where did that little clicker thing end up?
It's just on the other side of this laptop.
Aha. Okay. So here you can see what's left of a piercing, and that's the other side of the same whole, you'll see some of these more clearly. Pierced coins are coins which are no longer in circulation as coins, but have become decorations hanging around a lady's neck, okay, or ankle or hand, but particularly around the neck. Here's a really good example of a coin that's pierced, and it's a European coin from Venice. So it's no longer in circulation as currency, but it's in circulation as jewellery. This is a coin from the Umayyad period, a very beautifully preserved coin actually. So this is a coin from basically the 7th century CE. Famous coin, one of the gold dinars of Mansour. And this is an older photograph. I wasn't able to get a new photograph because this coin is currently on display in Omaha. So when the coin comes back home to Jerusalem, I'll arrange to get it photographed. But a famous, sort of, I guess, an archetypal Islamic coin. We've got about, I think, 7 gold coins amongst the 602 that have been found at Bethsaida. This is a Zanjid coin, and it's from Damascus, and this is a 12th century coin. So in the period parallel to the collapse of the Crusader period. This is the one and only Ilkhanid coin, and it was actually minted in Persia and found its way across, probably during the Ayyubid or Mamluk period. This is one of the 2 Salah ad-Din coins, and this is a coin actually found in Area T in I think in 2012 in the first season at Area T. Okay, minted in Damascus. Another Mamluk coin. This one is 14th century. Again, Damascus. This looks like it might be a Jewish coin, right? Star of David. No, the Star of David is used in other contexts as well. So another Mamluk coin, Abu Bakr, a 14th century coin, and that particular hexagon design is one of the features of this period. Moving down then to the tail end, you've got the early Ottoman period. We have this coin from Suleiman II. He's the guy that built the city walls of the old city in Jerusalem as we know them today. This is one of his coins, minted in Egypt, silver medin, and I think we've already covered the European coin. So that's the range of data, and we're dealing with a set of as I said, 60 coins from this period. So what do we make of it? Well, there are very few coins from Bethsaida, if you remember that chart, very few coins from before the 12th century, from before the Crusader. There were some dynastic periods not represented at all, and even those that were represented, there were just 1 or 2 or 4 coins from that period. So there were 4 Byzantine coins, most of them from very early in the Byzantine period, and that underlines the point that early in the Byzantine period, Bethsaida became a lost city, which is sitting there on the side of the lake, but it had been lost. People forgot that's where it was, and that's probably due to the earthquake that hit the area in the 4th century. In the early Islamic period, there's very little evidence, just a few coins, and frankly, coins can stay in circulation long after the time they're issued. So having a coins from the Abbasid period does not mean there were people there in the Abbasid period. Just that some of the coins that ended up at Bethsaida were originally minted in the Abbasid period. So if there's only a handful of coins, that's probably a bad pun, okay, if there's only a few coins, that doesn't necessarily suggest significant human presence at the time the coins were issued, because the coins could have got to the site at a later period, and that's particularly so when the coins are pierced, because when we know they are no longer in circulation, they're in secondary use as ornaments. So, no coins from the Rasidun, 4 from the Umayyad, 2 from the Abbasid, 1 of them pierced, no coins from the Fatimids. 2 coins from the Crusader period, but both of them are already pierced. So in other words, we found them in somebody's grave, is what that's telling us. These were grave goods. 5 from the Zanjids, none of them pierced, so that begins to get a bit more interesting. And the Zanjids weren't around for very long. So for a short-lived dynasty to have 5 of its coins at Bethsaida, that becomes a little bit more statistically significant. Only 1 from the Elkinids, so you can't say much of that. 6 from the Ayyubids, who we know were active in the area, because remember, Saladin defeated the Crusaders in the decisive battle at the Horns of Hatim, just across the road from the new Roman Catholic Church at Migdal. So we know that Saladin was in the area at the time, on a roll, at the peak of his power, and we find 6 Ayyubid coins at Bethsaida. Then we have 30 Mamluk coins. So something has changed. Why is there suddenly such a significant cluster of coins from one particular dynasty? The Mamluks, remember, were the dynasty from 1250 to 1517. Roughly 300 years, the period directly before the Ottomans. Okay, looking at these 30 Mamluk coins. 3 of them are from late in the 1200s. 13 of them are from the 1300s, from the 14th century. 5 of them are from the 15th century, and 4 of them are early 15th century. I think the other one, the 5th one, is mid-15th century. And none are from the 16th century. But there are another 9 that we're not able to date. Now, of course, they might all be from the 16th century. Probably not. Given the other patterns, they're probably from the other periods. So that, just the dating of the Mamluk coins, none of which are pierced. None of them were in secondary use as ornaments. These are coins which were in circulation as coins. Okay? And it suggests beginning of a Mamluk period, exactly when they come to power, after 1250. And they're at their peak in the 14th century, and we know that the Mamluk period basically collapsed 100 years or so before the Ottomans turned up and pushed them off their perch. And there are 2 early Ottoman coins, one of which is pierced. So this is the extra bit of work I did last night. I was just playing with this and thinking, now what if I tried to map the coins, not only by the issuing authority, which is more or less by date, but also looking at them in terms of where they were found on the site. So this is trying to reference them by when were they issued, and whereabouts on the site did we find them. Now, before A West and A South went their separate ways, we just talked about Area A. Okay, these days we say A West, A South. So A and A West, between them, have 19 coins from this medieval period. Check with Carl overnight. They will all be from graves. There's something like 250 graves on the top of the tell and on the western side of the tell. Okay? So almost all of those will be from graves. In other words, Bedouins were burying their people there in the 17th, 18th and 19th century. So these are what we're dealing with. There's nothing at all from A South. Surprise. A South is Iron Age. Coins had not been invented yet. So if you're wanting coins, do not volunteer to work in A South. You're wasting your time, okay? If you do find a coin there, it'll be a Roman coin. It won't be from this period. Area B, remember, is basically this palace. As you come in through the city gates, the area on your right is Area B, and that includes the Bit Halani palace. And when Carl was digging it a few years ago, it's where the pagan temple was located. So Area B, which we haven't really worked in for a few years, 16 medieval coins. Most of them Mamluk. All of them, Carl would say, has said overnight, coming out of graves. Area C, Fisherman's House, Winemaker's House, 8 coins. 5 of them are Mamluk. 1 of them Ayyubid and so on. Okay, again, they'll be graves. They will have been found in graves. Area D, no coin. Area D is a very small area. No coins coming out of there at all. Area E, 2 coins. Area E is a place about this big, basically 5 metre by 6 metre square, rectangle. It's on your left as you walk down from A West to Area T. It's actually a Mamluk cottage, farming cottage, which was excavated about 10 years ago. And they found a couple of coins there from the Ayyubid period. Area T, which only started in 2012, already has 10 coins out of the 60 from the medieval period, okay, as well as most of the medieval pottery and so on. So although places like Area A and Area B have been continuously excavated for more than 20 years, Area T has been excavated for 4 seasons. Already 10 of the 60 medieval coins come out of Area T. So we do seem to be working in Area T in an area which is distinctively Mamluk, distinctively medieval, with both Mamluk and Ottoman materials. And then we have, because of poor record keeping, we have another 5 coins which our records do not tell us which area they were found in. When I have time to dig into the database and look up the particular basket number, I will be able to retrieve that information, but it hasn't been recorded in any of the versions of the report that I've got access to at the moment. Okay, so you get some sense of the distribution and the likely explanation for that distribution of the 60 medieval coins across different parts of the site. So wrapping up then in terms of analysis and interpretation. Okay, and this I just did a quick swap before from PowerPoint to Keynote, so we're going to have a couple of issues here with the text. One of the things that I think we read from the variation in the coin data is that when the seat of the government, when the seat of the Islamic Caliphate was in Cairo or in Baghdad, Bethsaida was insignificant to their imperial policies. So we find very few coins from those periods at Bethsaida. When the seat of the Islamic government is based in Damascus, then there's greater proximity, there's more influence, there's more sign of government activity in the area. This becomes particularly significant with the struggle to defeat the Crusaders through the late Ayyubid period, when Saladin is, of course, based in Damascus, and he's attacking the Crusaders from the northeast. So what we seem to be finding is that in the late Ayyubid, in the Ayyubid period and the early Mamluk period, Bethsaida becomes a place of interest. And we begin to get evidence of people settling there for the first time in about 700 years. So from the middle of the 4th century until the middle of the 12th century, there's basically nobody living at Bethsaida. The occasional goat herd running over the place, but people are not living there. That begins to change after the defeat of the Crusaders, moving into the early Mamluk period, when the government is based in Damascus and communications with the coast, and the ongoing siege at Akko, which lasts another 100 years or so, becomes particularly relevant. So in other words, the projected patterns of human settlement at Bethsaida in the medieval period reflect the fortunes of Damascus. Damascus on the rise, Bethsaida prospers. Damascus, not the seat of power, Bethsaida is ignored. I think that's the kind of pattern which is coming through. We do know that in the early Mamluk period there was a large sugarcane industry in the Jordan Valley. It was a government monopoly run by the Mamluk sultans, with all proceeds coming back to the sultan. There's no evidence so far that Bethsaida was involved in the sugarcane industry. We're not finding the industrial installations needed to do the sugarcane processing. We find them in other places around the Sea of Galilee, but we're not yet finding them, and we have not found them at Bethsaida. That doesn't mean we won't find them next year, but we haven't found them yet. And so far, not a hint of the very distinctive shaped pottery which is used in the distillation processes to make sugarcane in the to make sugar at least in the medieval period. So given that if those sort of pottery jars were being used anywhere in the immediate vicinity of Bethsaida, some of them would have found their way back to the cottages. There's no evidence at all of any sugarcane ceramic ware, sugar processing ceramic ware at Bethsaida. That's what I've just said. So, because as we excavate further down the site, we may find evidence that changes that, but at this stage, Bethsaida in the early Mamluk period does not appear to have been part of the sugar cane cultivation industry. So we're picking up patterns of occupation, but we're not yet able to connect. So what we seem to have is a settlement beginning in the Mamluk period, certainly continuing through to the Ottoman period. In the late 19th century, I haven't seen it, I've been told, there are 19th century photographs of Bethsaida showing a village on the slope where Area T is. So we've got living memory, and we've got photographic archives showing us that there was some kind of, by that period, Bedouin village on the slope. The Bedouin would have taken over some of the structures left behind by the Mamluks. The Mamluks themselves typically took over older structures and reused them as barns, places to put animals and so on. So we've probably got a cascading series of occupation, and one of the questions will then be, how does the data from the coins connect with that, with the other things we know from the pottery, from the structures and so on? What can we reconstruct of the story of human presence at Bethsaida? The backstory, of course, is that it was some sort of fishing village throughout the first millennium. In the time of Jesus and the early disciples, it's part of the contest between Philip and Antipas. In the aftermath of the Roman war, the Jewish revolt is just simply part of the Galilee. And then by the Byzantine period, it's been abandoned after a major earthquake. It changes the geography and stops them getting access to the Sea of Galilee. So whoever comes along in the 12th or 13th century is not fishing. Their core activity is not fishing. It's probably going to be that they provided labour to work in the plantations, but the sugar cane was being milled and processed at other centres rather than being processed at Bethsaida. But we're yet to pin that down. There's a print version of this presentation available on my page on academia.edu, and we've got a few minutes for questions, which can be either about the coins or they can be other wider questions about Bethsaida in 2015.